I gave you all I own, put you on this golden throne, but I'm a little stronger now.
Welcome to the C.S. Joseph Podcast. I am your host, Chris Taylor, bringing you another acolyte question today. Today's question is, what is the different approaches for SI and SE users in regards to practice? Okay, so I understand most of y'all are probably squinting at this whiteboard going, what does that say? Don't worry, I'm going to go over all of it, basically. And we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes, and I'll go point for point as we go through this. So, first things first, we have optimistic SI and pessimistic SI versus optimistic SE and pessimistic SE. Now, what are a couple of the traits that we're going to be discussing in regards to SI versus SE? So, SI, predominantly, regardless of optimistic, pessimistic, without getting into all the nuance of each specific type, SI is a past focus. So we are talking about discipline, endurance, because it is an internal sensory function. It is focused on what it itself is going through. SE, we have talent and drive. This is because SE and NI users as a whole are better about, in the moment, seeing what's going on with a situation or with an object in the environment and then finding a good path forward in that moment. This doesn't mean that SI users can't have talent. This doesn't mean that SE users can't have discipline. But the lower you go on the list for one of these, the more traits one side is going to adopt, and the more it's going to disregard the traits on the other side. So if you have an SI inferior, for example, we are not very talented, naturally. Almost everything that we do, we have to practice to a degree and a lot. We have to endure failures consistently, and typically speaking, your SE inferiors are extremely talented, although you guys tend to overthink it and then, get performance anxiety, things like that. Fun times. So, these are, excuse me, these are not all inclusive what SI and SE is. It gets a little more nuanced when you get into each specific type and how they use these functions, because humans don't just use one function as a whole. Now, if we were to talk about the individual functions by themselves, they're very simple. SI is just was. It is the internal was. It is the past point in time. And SE is as close to now as the human experience can get. It is what is going on around it. A good way to think about the perception functions as a whole is for SE, will for NI, a future point in time, could for NE, and was for SI. Is, will, could, was. Doesn't get any simpler than that. But fortunately, our functions don't operate in a vacuum. Otherwise, we would be very boring creatures as a whole. So let's be thankful that they don't operate that simplistically. Now, it is important to still understand this fundamental root for what these functions are at a very binary level, because as you get more complex, you can start to see how everything connects as a whole. Anywho, we'll get on to some of the strategies here. So, as a whole, just off the cuff, when we are talking about thematically what these two different types are wanting to do, SE users versus SI users, on the SI user side, it's all about exposure therapy. Fact of the matter is, an SI user is always at least somewhat focused on their comfort in a situation. So the SI users need to learn how to expose themselves to things, to failures, to things not going well. okay? Now, through this, they end up developing discipline, okay? So, exposure therapy on the SI side, going out, doing new things, and we'll get into the nuance between pessimistic and optimistic here in a moment, versus SE users, totemic motivators. So I've talked about this on the channel in several videos now, but I'll keep talking about it. Your environment. That means an environment doesn't just mean, oh, my home, oh, my work, oh, my car. It's everything. If you want the most success, you need to set up every facet of your life to surround whatever it is you are moving towards. That NI being will, that specific point in time, if you want to maximize the success of getting there, everything in your environment needs to reflect that motivator. So, totemic motivators for SE users. Now, let's talk about pessimistic and optimistic. Results may vary because we are not talking about SI versus NI here. We are talking about SI versus SE here. What this means is the higher your sensing function is, the better you're going to be able to approach either one of these depending on the situation. And I won't say better because let's be honest. If you're able to do these both, you're not going to excel at either one. It just means you're more flexible. So your SJs, SPs, okay, your sensors that are predominantly S heroes, S parents, meaning that they still have access to the other half of this function. This means that you're going to be wanting to do a dual approach to this depending on the situation. Now, this is where octogram really comes in. More so to a greater extent for the SJs and SPs. It's a different topic when we talk about the NE functions, so NE and NI, and that's where the intuitive shine. But for the sake of practice, we're going to stick to sensing functions. Now, for those of you that are eagle-eyed and can actually read my chicken scratch on this whiteboard that's also written incredibly tiny, we have two metrics here, and then two sub-metrics. We have failure and success. Well, as we talked about before, this SE is all about trying to achieve a success as easily and quickly as possible. Straight line to success. SI users, all about failures. The more we fail as SI users, the stronger we get because of NE. It makes our NE more capable of predicting what is going to happen. This gives us a stronger avenue for long-term success. But if we're in a rapidly changing environment, or if our life uproots, we basically have to start from square one. SE users, you don't have that problem. But you do have the problem of if your environment is not set up towards your goal, it's going to consistently screw you in the short run. Blessings and curses on both sides. Now, aside from SI being failure focused, or failure acceptance, we'll get there in a second, and SE being success, we have optimistic, pessimistic. Now, your SI optimistics need to learn to accept failures. So the name of your game is failure acceptance. Okay? Why is this? Pessimistic NE. So you guys are really adverse to thinking about what could possibly go wrong and trying to avoid that for your comfy SI experience, your SI optimistic experience. You guys need to accept that failures will happen and move in spite of that, because those failures are actually going to prevent way worse failures down the road. Now, this doesn't mean run headlong into traffic and see what happens. Not advising that. Okay? But it does mean that you need to be more open to failures. So you need to be more focused that failure is an option. Okay? Now, you need to be more accepting that failure is an option. Excuse me. So you need to realize that failure is going to happen. Regardless of how good you are at predicting the ticking time bombs of the world, you're gonna actually develop more sometimes by taking that blow up to the face and accepting that that failure is a thing. Now, SI pessimistics. So, to recap, because I think I got any tangent and mixed up my terms for a second. Let's do this one more time. SI optimistics. Accept failure. Realize that failure is going to happen and embrace those failures. Okay? You cannot keep trying to avert the failures all the time. You have to eat some of those short ends of the stick and just work with what you got. Now, SI pessimistics, failure focus. Here's the funny thing about SI pessimistic. We are always uncomfortable. Well, SI inferiors in particular are always uncomfortable. We know we're going to fail. Okay? So what ends up happening with that NE optimistic? We try to find ways to not fail, or just like the NE pessimistics, but what more commonly happens is that NE optimistics are going to be too optimistic that, oh, well, maybe it goes well. No. Focus on the failures. Don't just shy away from the fact that you're uncomfortable. Keep looking for those failures. What's the difference really when we're talking about focus and acceptance? And any pessimistic doesn't want to accept those failures for itself because it wants to maintain its status quo of comfort. SI pessimistics, that's so optimistic, SI pessimistics, they are uncomfortable, so they are looking for a way out. No, focus on the failures. Keep focusing on them. Okay, beating the proverbial horse now. Let's get over to the SE side. All right, totemic motivators. You guys, for the optimistic SE users, okay, you need to be success focused. This is particularly true because your NI pessimistics are skeptical that you'll actually be able to get what you want. Or you're overloaded on options. Okay, there's a lot of options. Cool. There's a ton of them. And that's where you get lost between the SE what's going on and your repressed NE what could be. But I digress. SE optimistics. You're seeing everything going on constantly. And your NI inferior just doesn't know what to do. Maybe you're an ESTP. Sue me. That's my superego. That's who I typically talk to. But your NI pessimistic is unsure of the outcome that you'll actually get. So you chalk it up to a failure by default. Too much failure acceptance. Not enough success focus. Interesting how that works. Anyhow, what about success acceptance? So we have, I didn't flip that. That is an error. Okay. Oh well, doesn't really matter. So success acceptance for the pessimistic SE users. So what's going on here? Your NI, high NI function, or your optimistic NI function is going, I want more, right? So you're consistently going, I want more, and you really lose sight of what step are you at in the process? Where are you right now? So what you guys need to do, really, is that you need to learn that you need to set attainable short goals, accept the success for what it is, right? Accept the success for what it is. This will help keep you out of performance anxiety, okay? Because you're not trying to have this overly grandiose idea of what success is. Short, bite-sized pieces, okay? And accept those things. Accept that you succeeded. It's hard for you to accept success because you tend to be failure focused. Back on the SI side, it's hard to accept those failures because your SI is looking at success. So, these things go hand in hand together. Keep that in mind. And if you guys have any questions on this, no, it's a short video, but hopefully I nailed the big points. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Hit me up on Discord. Join us on the Discord channel. You guys have heard it from me a million times, but Discord really is a great application for like-minded people. Anyhow, yeah, leave your comments, leave a like. I'll catch you guys in the next video.